Hello, everybody. So tonight we have Can Dressage Be Saved? And we're going to start off with Sue Dyson. Sue, what's the solution?
So we have to ask, well, why are horses opening their mouths with separation of the teeth for at least 10 seconds? That's quite a long time. And then the other questions that arise are, could this reflect conflict behavior? The horse being confused by the cues that are being delivered by the rider, and therefore, as a response to that, they open their mouths. Or another reason could be that the horses are finding these movements biomechanically difficult and perhaps uncomfortable. So, for example, I think that piaffe is a very biomechanically demanding movement, and we tend to see increased prevalence of mouth openings. And then I think we have to think very carefully about the head being behind a vertical position, which we see at all levels of dressage, from the preliminary level right up to the Grand Prix level. And I'm questioning whether riders and trainers appreciate the biomechanical consequences of the horse's head being behind a vertical position, and often the shortening of the neck, and the fact that this doesn't allow the horse to appropriately move through its back, appropriately engage the muscles of the thoracic girdle, which enable it to elevate the forehand, which in turn allows the horse to sit more behind, flex at the lumbosacral joint, and engage the hind limbs and push appropriately from the hind limbs. And when any of these things go wrong, we're compromising the potential athletic development of the horse, and also potentially predisposing to the development of injury, which is going to compromise the longevity of the horse. So I think that's my introduction, which opens the floodgates for both James and Lisa to give their experiences and opinions.
There's so many things that I could say, but one of the things I wanted to start with was I think that there's a general lack of riding with our bodies. This is really one of my most passionate things. We don't necessarily speak enough about how well we can use our body, our seat, our leg, our seat bones, our positioning. There's a lot of focus on contact and judged. It is one of the markers that's really spoken about a lot. We want a really, really, really steady contact. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we have so many problems with the contact, because it becomes this obsession with the contact, steady contact, immovable contact. We all know as riders and trainers that particularly whether you've got a very powerful horse that's not balanced, or whether you've got a very low level horse, not every rider is capable of riding a very elastic and powerful horse with a steady contact, because they're not balanced themselves, they're not coordinated, and they're not trained. And so they're buying a very powerful or unbalanced horse and told that for a judge, they need to have a very, very steady contact, and it becomes fixed. The consequence of that is behind the vertical. It also means that the horse doesn't understand the language of the body, because a horse will always listen to the most strong aid. So the strongest aid will usually be the metal in its mouth.
Get anyone better for bitting than Dr. James Cooling. So James, give us your thoughts, please.
So bit thickness and bit weight can make a difference in terms of pressure on the tongue, even as I said, even before you've picked up the reins, basically. So what would traditionally be thought of as kinder to have a thicker bit that spreads the pressure technically over a larger area may not in many horses actually be as kind as you'd think, simply because there isn't the room to accommodate it. So the only thing that is conformable in the mouth is the horse's tongue. And therefore that's the thing that gets impacted basically by a thick bit or a heavy bit, simply through the weight of it resting on it. So tighten your noseband, or if the horse is opening its mouth, it's information to you as a rider or a trainer or an owner. What is going on? Why is that happening? Where is the problem? Because there is a problem, and whether that is a riding problem, a training problem, a contact problem, a biomechanical problem, a lameness problem, problem with the fit or what, the comfort of what they have in their mouth, how that mouthpiece fits the horse's anatomy, how it fits around the tongue, if it is allowing them to swallow, chew, and relax and do the things that they ought to be able to do, then those things need addressing rather than just trying to mask it or tighten it. And I think the message is generally getting out there, hopefully, that bits and bridles should be fitted like saddles should be fitted, and they should also be checked on a regular basis.
I just found it so interesting when you said to me, we were talking about the blue tongue situation. I hadn't realised this before. You said about people that are injured and they found the tourniquet more painful than the actual injury. And I just think that's your subject to say about.
Yeah, there's certainly with regards to, I mean, blue tongues, obviously, again, a very hot topic, shall we say, and a very topical issue at the moment. Again, being photographed and seen, obviously mainly brought up in high level competition as in bridle fitter. I've seen that with snaffles and double bridles, actually with and without riders on them. So there's not enough room in the horse's mouth, essentially, or the bit is inappropriate, or the noseband is too tight, or it's a combination of those things. It can happen in the stable. I've seen horses with tongues turning blue in the stable simply from that before riders got on. But obviously, you'd expect those things to be addressed before you got to high-level competitions.
I'm just going to add a little something because I happened to have dinner with Dr. Jessica Kidd last night, who is watching. Possibly one of the issues with unsoundness in dressage as well is Jessica was looking at the data for what causes hind leg suspensory desmitis. A couple of the main things is constant arena work and medium. This surprised me because I thought I think it would be PF as well, but medium trot and extended trot, I think Jessica said. So it's carefully using those movements as well, I would think.
Also say that during warm-up, you need to avoid the movements that the horse finds difficult because perhaps it's hurting a bit. So why not just use warm-up as warm-up is designed to be, to enable the horse to move, to enable the joints to go through their range of motion, to upregulate various enzymes. But don't think that this is a training session, because training should be done at home, not during the warm-up. And to do this repetitively during warm-up is likely to have a deleterious effect on performance in the arena.
So I love that. I mean, that really is top tips for anyone that wants to do dressage competition, isn't it?
About it. So I totally agree with that. And we should be working on our basics. I think there is sometimes I have seen, people try and not train the movements because the horses get really hot and then just do them in the arena. And it can cause a lot of stress with the horse and behavioral issues because they only really have to do a flying change in the arena. And they learn that suddenly the whiteboards become a very unreliable place to be.
Can I just ask you a question that I haven't ever spoken to you about before? But I think a lot of the top dressage riders wouldn't be starting their own horses. And would you have anything to say about those early stages?
Well, I would question the use of young horse classes and also the stallion grading system, and also the young horse sales classes. And there's these huge commercial pressures from the breeders who are producing these extravagantly moving horses, which are not necessarily suited to amateur riders. They're only going to be suitable for professional riders. And then there is the pressure to produce those quickly so that the stallions are graded and so that the young horses are sold through sales and they reach high prices at sales. And everybody thinks they want to start with a 3 and 4-year-old thinking they've got this naive individual, but it's not a naive individual. They've already had a lot of pressure placed upon them. And I think we need to be thinking about this and thinking these horses need to be developed in a much slower and more progressive manner in order to produce them to have longevity, because I think a lot of these young horses do not have longevity. I would always say to somebody who's bought a horse through the Verdon sales that you need to forget about that horse for 6 months, let it recover from everything that it's gone through, both mentally and physically, because otherwise you're dealing with already a potentially broken horse, which is likely to get more broken.
Everybody, I'm going to have to press end, but
Thank you.
guys, you know where we are if to email us or anything like that. Really
Thanks
good.
for arranging it.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're
Bye.
very welcome.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you,
Thank
Sarah.
you. Thanks, guys.